Artificial intelligence is transforming the landscape of modern medicine, promising unprecedented speed and accuracy both in diagnosis and in the discovery of new drugs. As the technology matures, a crucial question emerges. Are we witnessing genuine breakthroughs, or is the excitement outpacing the reality on the ground?
So today we take a look at the state of AI in medicine, separating fact from hype and exploring what lies ahead for patients, doctors and drug developers. Joining us today are two distinguished voices from the front lines of this revolution.
Dr. Hetu Kamisetty is CTO of Xaira Therapeutics. He brings a deep perspective from the world of AI-driven drug discovery, leading a company harnessing powerful algorithms to reimagine how new medicines are found and brought to the market.
We also have Dr. Rohan Khera from Yale School of Medicine. He is an internationally recognized physician, scientist and innovator whose research has driven advances in AI-based diagnosis and clinical decision support.
So what we'll try and do here on this episode today is split this discussion in two parts, two sharp parts. One, of course, we'll focus on how AI is being used in new drug discovery. We'll do that with Hetu. And then with Rohan, Dr. Rohan Khera, we'll focus on how AI is being used to diagnose diseases, better diagnosis, quicker diagnosis. Let me first welcome in Hetu Kamisetty, is CTO of Xaira Therapeutics. Hetu, great to have you with us here on the program. Thank you very much for joining us. I want to start by asking you, Hetu, for you to explain to our viewers, the lay of the land as things stand right now. You are using generative AI to develop new molecules, to come up with cures for diseases, fast-track the entire process. How exactly are you doing this? Are you conceptualizing in completely new molecules, going after, diseases which don't have a cure right now? Just give us a sense of where things stand.
Yeah, thanks, Prashant. So if you think of drug discovery and the components to drug discovery and what it takes to make a new medicine, problem one is to understand the cause of the disease. You have a mutation in a gene that causes cancer. You need to understand what is going wrong in the body to cause the disease. You need to make a medicine that will fix it, and then you need to deliver it to the patient. And we're using generative AI across all these problems. So we're using generative AI to decode disease, to design cures, and to deliver them ultimately to patients. And there's opportunities in all these axes, and we and a few others are pushing the state of the art here. I'm personally excited about our abilities to literally generate medicine or generate cures given the right prompt to the AI. And that's an active focus in our company and in the industry.
So Hetu, many companies have been using AI for drug discovery development, but more from an optimization point of view. Now you are using generative AI, which is relatively new, 2-3 years in the system. So give us an example of what you are doing, which is in your pipeline right now, to understand the approach of generative AI versus, say, the traditional AI approach.
Absolutely, I'm happy to. So exactly as you said, people have used AI to optimize. And the way you optimize is you start with something that maybe sort of works, and then you use AI to make it better. That's the whole concept of using optimization for the drugs. For that, you kind of need to start from something that kind of works. And optimization will make it maybe a little better, a little faster, a little cheaper. Generative AI has the opportunity to basically build these from scratch. So in cases where even starting in finding that initial substrate is difficult, generative AI can bring about a sea change. The analogy I give is imagine the space of the stars in the galaxy, in the Milky Way, right? The space of molecules that we can currently start from are about the size of the sun. AI has the opportunity to go from the size of the sun to the size of the stars in the Milky Way. So there's a huge untapped space of molecules that we don't look at today, and AI can help you intelligently generate and sample the whole space. And that really is the power of generative AI, and that's why we're so excited about it.
Got that. Hetu, we often read about how the molecular structure is sort of been broken down by AI models, protein structures. In terms of understanding the body itself, right? I mean, that is a starting point in many ways. Is that a frontier, if I can use that term, which is now we understand that very well?
I think we understand, are beginning to understand the space of molecules and that proteins really well. The 2024 Nobel Prize was awarded to the AlphaFold breakthrough, which allows us to use AI to predict the structure of protein, and for protein design, which allows you to generate proteins with desired properties. And in some sense, Xaira is built on that design foundation. We are using generative AI to design molecules, some of which could be protein or protein-like, to design to deliver cures. That is the essence of what we're doing today.
Is there anything, not just from you at Xaira, but others who are doing this, who are using generative AI tools in this space? Are there any molecules which kind of have advanced to different stages, which are closer to kind of approval, which are under consideration, completely conceptualized from ground zero?
Generative AI is a few years old, right? So, ChatGPT came, November 2022. It's only about 3 years, 2.5 years. The regulatory environment and the process takes several years. So today, at this point, we don't have any generated molecule in the clinic, but we have several in the pipeline, and the industry has several in the pipeline, presumably. What we do have are things that have been optimized by AI. There's a few things in the clinic, there's a few things in phase 3, a few things in phase 2 that show the promise of AI and optimization, but the full promise of AI will be in the years to come.
I mean, just to take an example, COVID, right, 2020. It's an example of vaccine development which happened at record pace because it was needed. In November, we got that Pfizer vaccine. Now, I'm just using that as an example, and there are technicalities, complexities involved, and maybe the technology was old and it was kind of, again, to use your word, optimized to address this problem then. But the time taken to develop a new drug is very long right now. How much can that time be cut down by using these technologies, Hetu?
Right, exactly. Great question. So there are a few different challenges in drug discovery as it stands today. One is, of course, the time it takes. Some of that can be accelerated with the kinds of generative AI I was talking about, which accelerates the early stage of clinical development or preclinical development. There are aspects which are regulatorily needed. You need to run a clinical trial. We think we can, there's an opportunity to make it cheaper and potentially faster by personalizing drugs better to the exact patients who are most likely to respond to that. To take the cancer example, today, if God forbid somebody is diagnosed with cancer, there's a lot of understanding of the exact type of cancer that you might be diagnosed, and your drug is personalized, or to some extent personalized, to the exact type of cancer, subtype of cancer, the localization of the cancer. We want to do that for large sets of disease. We think there's a lot of opportunities to accelerate and reduce the costs of new drug development using these approaches.
So generative AI scores over the traditional AI method in terms of innovation, coming out with novel new products, but also there could be an edge in terms of cost and even the timeline for discovery and development. Are there any challenges that you foresee using generative AI? For instance, data sets. But that could be a problem even with the traditional AI method, garbage in, garbage out. So tell us, in this generative AI approach, what are the challenges or limitations you see?
Absolutely, great question. And so, if you think of ChatGPT or other consumer AI, they've been powered by the data of the internet. They crawl the web, they crawl all sorts of books, they scrape books, they look at New York Times articles, etc. The equivalent in biology and in drug discovery is lacking. So while we talk about the opportunities with generative AI, it's really generative AI powered by data. And it will not just be an AI innovation where it's purely data from that already exists. We need to create the data to train our models to truly understand biology, to truly understand disease. And we don't think this is going to happen overnight for all disease, but we definitely have hope that we can do this at least for some diseases even today.
Uh, Absolutely. Hetu, just a quick point. Do you, should I call you a biotech company? I mean, if a medtech company broadly, maybe.
Yeah, we are a biotech company from the outside and an AI company from inside.
Inside. So you need those NVIDIA chips to run your the GPUs, or I mean, you use the Chat GPT, which I think all of us use.
Oh, I wish. No, we use NVIDIA extensively. We build our own AI models. We collaborate with NVIDIA, with all the hardware players, with all the hyperscalers to power our model development and, the use of those models to make drugs.
Okay. And do you work with larger sort of established big pharma companies as well? Do they come to you with specific projects? I mean, is that the business model in that sense? And it'll evolve. I mean, the company itself is new,
Right.
but
So we
yeah, go on.
Great question. I think there's several business models in this space. We are a fully integrated biotech company with the capabilities and the current pipeline to use our models to make our own medicine. However, we also, there's been a lot of interest since we launched, and also because of the space, because of the AI interest, there's been a lot of interest from pharma and established players to learn from us, to benefit from the platform that we've developed. And I think this is going to become much more common in the years to come.
Can you give some examples of the products which are in your pipeline? What kind of molecules are you working for? What kind of diseases are you trying to solve?
Great question. We aren't disclosing disease indications at this moment. I can say that we are pursuing several uh, where we are prioritizing based on the unmet need and where AI can make a difference.
Have you had any engagement with the regulator, the FDA? How are they looking at AI designed molecules, on the whole? Because so far, as you said, that many AI optimized molecules have reached phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, but we still don't have an approved drug. So are the regulators pro? Are they a bit cautious?
I think that's a great question. It's a little early to say. So there are some things that are well trodden, right? So, our drug development process and the regulatory proof points that you need are well understood. It doesn't really matter where the molecule came from. In some sense, it has to be tested in animal models. It has to be tested in safety studies. It has to be tested in efficacy studies. And I don't imagine that will change necessarily because the molecule came from a different place. However, as we start thinking about other ways we could use AI, for example, in the way we personalize medicine, that will meaningfully change how we run clinical trials, or can meaningfully change how we run clinical trials. And I think at that point, there would be a fair bit of interaction with the regulators. I think at this point, there's a fair bit of openness from especially the FDA in using AI. The FDA itself has announced that they're going to be using AI in reading their clinical trial reports and making synopsis going forward. And that, to me, is a positive sign, but I think it's too early to say.
To that earlier question, without revealing any specific treatments that you're working on, any drugs, but are there any segments which kind of are better aligned to the kind of work that you do? I mean, cardiology, neurology, I mean, just specific segments.
Yeah, if you think about the large unmet need, we think about unmet need, which is basically places where the standard of care isn't good enough. There's huge opportunities across the space, right? I mean, drug discovery and modern biotech is, depending on how you count it, between 20 and 100 years old. We've all heard the story of Alexander Fleming and the serendipitous discovery of penicillin, right, which is an antibiotic which saved millions of lives. Today, even today, we've made a lot of progress in how we make new medicine, but it's still in that serendipitous process where there's a lot of stochasticity and a lot of uncertainty. By reducing that, we think that we can meaningfully make a difference across a broad swathe of diseases and indications. And hopefully, we are not the only one. This is very much a winner, not a winner-take-all market. It's somebody else succeeding will actually be the rising tide that rises all boats. And so there's a huge unmet need in oncology, in cancer, as you called out. There's unmet need in autoimmune diseases. There's unmet need across the board in a bunch of different places. And we haven't, for better or worse, had to struggle to find places where we can apply our technology.
I have to ask you this because I think the big C, cancer, right? You mentioned oncology briefly. I mean, there are hundreds of billions of dollars money being thrown into AI as a technology, right? Maybe the most ever in any new segment at the fastest ever pace. I mean, if this can't solve or find a cure for cancer, I don't want to say little else will, but what's your sense? I mean, how far, you think this will really quicken the pace of finding treatments for cancer? And of course, there are different kinds, but what's your sense?
I think it will help make it more predictable. It will help make it cheaper, and it will make it faster. It's hard to predict which of those will come first. We hope in the fullness of time, in 5-10 years from now, we can say that all of these are true. But the exact order in which it happens is really hard to predict right now.
Okay. We wish you all the best of luck. New medicines, faster medicines, more predictability. I think the world needs all of this with, of course, a lot of help from AI, generative AI in this case. Hetu, thank you very much for coming on. Really fantastic conversation. We learned a lot, and I hope so did our viewers.
Thank you so much, Prashant. Thank you for having me.
Welcome back to The Frontier. We are, of course, focused on AI and drug discovery in the first segment. Now let's look at how AI is being used to diagnose diseases, health conditions better and faster at perhaps a lower cost as well. To help us do this, as promised, we have Dr. Rohan Khera from the Yale School of Medicine. Dr. Khera, great to have you with us here. Thank you very much for your time. To begin with, I mean, just give us a state of play right now in terms of how much AI is being used in diagnosis. Where are we on a scale of 1 to 10, say?
Absolutely. So thanks for having me here. It's my great pleasure to discuss this emerging domain of artificial intelligence and how I feel it has definitely reached a tipping point. If you asked me like 5 years ago, I would say there's a lot of hype around how AI would change care. But in this current era where the infrastructure computationally has caught up, the methods have become more sophisticated, we can finally address the complexity of healthcare adequately so that we can actually create solutions that can change diagnostic paradigms. We've done a lot of work that spans electronic health records, how physicians write notes and clinical documentation, ECGs, wearable devices like wearable portable watches and rings, as well as a range of advanced diagnostic modalities. And we've armed them into novel diagnostic tools. And I think that's a new frontier that we initially did not have any ability to learn signatures of diseases from these data modalities.
So Rohan, could you tell us the new thing in terms of the use of AI in terms of diagnosis? How is it being used? How much of it is being used? Where is it being used? What kind of imaging techniques? Could you give us a sense of this?
So, we've been thinking about how AI might be used in clinical diagnosis for a while. And one of the domains has easily been applying it to existing imaging. Like somebody gets a chest X-ray or a CAT scan or a MRI scan, and thinking about using these, very large, complex images and inferring patterns about those has been, one of the first applications in radiology. What's actually more unique and maybe more suited globally, thinking about every care setting, not just the advanced hospitals, but something, my dad practices in a small town in India and has an ECG machine, and he gets an ECG out from a patient. he can only detect a range of conditions that humans can see. In our research group, we have built a series of tools that can take a photo of that ECG and diagnose conditions that typically require imaging of the heart. And I think the big thing for us is to learn that we can use existing data more effectively. So that's where I think it's the cutting edge. It's not about applying to the more complex test where you have radiologists trained for years to read and their job is like maybe easier and their workflow is better, but actually making AI do things that humans could not do, like looking at patterns in ECGs, in echocardiograms of things that currently we require even more advanced testing to see. And I think that's the cutting edge and frontier is to use existing simple data streams through AI, turn them into more complex information streams.
And from what you've seen so far, as the results of what you're talking about come in, are they reliable, Dr. Khera?
I think we've seen a global development in this space, including tools that have come through the FDA and have passed their muster. Even our tool to detect cardiac amyloid got an FDA's breakthrough device designation, and other tools have received full end-to-end clearance. And the US FDA, as you know, requires a rigorous validation for many of these tools. So yes, I think we're seeing very high performance, and accuracy is in the 90-95% range. And for many conditions, like a human reader on just that ECG could probably pick up maybe a third of the cases. And now we're picking up if close to 90% of people appropriately. And I think that's where I think these tests become very reliable. And we'll also have some challenges to make sure they work in every population. Like say, if I developed in like one population, we tested some of our tools in networks in India and some of the networks in Brazil. And some of them validated very well, some required additional development. And I think that's where I feel the next transition would happen. The tools that actually work globally and work well across populations.
So, Dr. Khera, some more nuance on how this is being deployed across the healthcare system right now.
So the science in this domain started about 6 or 7 years ago. Multiple studies confirmed the validity of the science. And so in the last 2 years, what has happened has been making sure many of these have turned into startup companies that have taken them to the FDA, so getting regulatory approval. And the last year, we got a payment code tied to this so that people can actually get reimbursed for running this as a test. And since that has happened, we are seeing a large development deployment efforts across health systems. In avoiding naming companies, some companies have already had existing networks in hospitals, and they were able to deploy in those hospitals to detect hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, for example, a condition that is rare but can lead to sudden cardiac arrest and is a major risk for dying unexpectedly. And I think they were able to deploy that. More recently, another larger company was able to integrate with ECG manufacturers and is going to be able to offer these services to many hospitals that already have those ECG companies' devices. So I think we are in the midst of rapid deployment. I think the radiology labs and other imaging labs are already seeing large-scale deployments. Now people have pre-marked areas where tumors are seen on an X-ray or a CT. There are areas, we built a tool that can read an echocardiogram end to end, and hospitals, and there are other tools that do parts of those functions. And our echocardiographic labs, where we do ultrasounds, 80 to 100 a day, are now being armed with them to do all the measurements live as they're done. So I think, to answer your question, yes, a lot of deployments are happening across, not in the country, definitely in the developed world, but more and more they're, going to, India and other countries as well. And the goal is like in the next couple of years, we would have very different care processes than what we have been used to.
Dr. Khera, what are the challenges for more widespread, faster adoption? You need health records, standardized health records, perhaps. You talked about FDA and some of these things getting approved now over the last 2 years or so. What are the challenges as you see them?
I think there are 3 or 4 major challenges. Largely, first, I would say tools are built, in pure, pristine data that have been farmed for developing them. But when you deploy in real-world practice, like there has to be infrastructure where if a diagnostic test is done, that information can be streamed in to an AI application to run the test and then push it back to the clinician to be able to see. And all this takes process. And the trouble is we haven't not just like here, globally across the world, haven't built systems that are so consistent that what you do in one place can be replicated without trouble in the other. So that interoperability is the term we use for that. That ability to go from one to the other is the large challenge. Second, I think the major consideration is regulatory. Like we have to make sure it works in patients that you're going to use it in. I think that's an easier thing because you can develop and validate in different populations. The final challenge I think is payment. Like who's paying for it? What's the right amount of money for it? Because many technology were developed using development R&D kind of dollars, and then now when we deploy, how much are we recouping? Deploying, the cost of deployment is modest. It's not like a new drug that you have to manufacture a molecule. So what is the right cost framework for this? And how much do we trust them? I think becomes a component tied to how much we also charge for them.
So just one final question, Dr. Khera. Is much of the technology coming from the West? What is the situation currently in India in terms of innovation and adoption?
I mean, I think, India has been a lot of the scientists that work in, including myself, are of Indian origin or Indian. So we've been working across the world. So I think there's definitely a big push in developing collaborative networks. But we have seen a lot of, especially tech startups form primarily in India too, and some that have new devices that capture novel data streams, like some wearable devices have come directly from India. I think what has happened a little less so is development in health settings in India. And that's because of the volume of patients and patient care that clinicians need to do. So I think that's where I feel there's some challenge happening. How we have addressed that is actually using some of our tools in an Indian setting with collaborators in India, and so they can become clinical experts who deploy and assess rather than develop and evaluate in their setting. So I definitely think it's lagging a little bit in development, but there's a lot of interest I see in deploying.
Well, Dr. Khera, exciting times. As you said, it's a tipping point. You certainly do believe it is a tipping point after what we've seen over the last few years, this technology come into its own, widespread adoption, not just in labs, but of course, hospitals as well. I think we wrap up on this another edition of The Frontier, AI in Medicine Tipping Point. We touched upon two important areas. One, of course, is new drug discovery, and the other is diagnosis. There are other angles to it we'd cover as we go along, but for now, that's all the time we have on another episode of The Frontier. Thanks for watching.